Hey, everybody. Ready for another deep dive? This time we're looking at Oklahoma County politics and specifically this whole jail situation that's turned into a financial mess.
It really has.
Yeah,
What started as a, simple bond issue has blown up into this huge GE budget gap, and now they're talking about hitting taxpayers with even more costs.
yeah, that's what caught my eye, too. When I saw that they were talking about property tax hikes and sales taxes and more bonds, I thought, wait, hold on.
Right, and that's before we even get into the whole debate about whether a bigger jail is even the right solution in the first place.
Okay, so let's back up for a sec and paint the picture for our listeners. Sure. Back in 2022, voters approved a bond issue for a new jail.
Right.
And that was
Yeah.
for how much?
$260 million.
Okay, 260 million.
Seems almost quaint now, right? Because the latest estimates put the total project cost somewhere between 610 and 677 million.
Wait, so more than double the original price tag?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oof, that's a huge GE jump.
It is, and it's left the county scrambling to figure out how to bridge that funding gap.
Which brings us to the upcoming county commissioner election, right? Because whoever wins that seat will have a big say in how this whole jail thing plays out.
Absolutely. This election is shaping up to be a major turning point for Oklahoma County.
So naturally, we're going to dive into one of the candidates, Sara Bana, who's been making waves with her stance on this issue and a bunch of others.
Yeah, her platform has really resonated with a lot of people, particularly those who are concerned about the financial impact of this jail expansion, and also those who are looking for a different approach to criminal justice.
Okay, so let's get specific. What is it about Sara Bana and her potential leadership that has people so excited?
Well, her campaign really centers around three key areas: criminal justice reform, mental health, and fiscal responsibility. And she weaves those themes together in a way that's really compelling for a lot of voters.
I'm intrigued. So break it down for us when it comes to this jail situation. What's Bana's take?
She's flat out opposed to building a bigger jail, and she's also against raising taxes to pay for it.
Okay, so no bigger jail, no new taxes. Got it.
Her argument is that expanding the jail doesn't actually address the root causes that lead to incarceration in the first place. And it's certainly not fiscally responsible when we have so many other pressing needs in the county.
Interesting. So instead of just building a bigger, more expensive jail, she wants to get at the underlying issues that are landing people there in the first place.
Yeah, that's the core of her approach. It's about looking beyond the symptoms and addressing the systemic problems that contribute to crime and incarceration.
Makes sense. But how does she actually plan to shrink the jail population? That seems like a pretty tall order.
It is, but she's laid out a pretty detailed plan, and it has three main components.
Three prongs. Let's hear 'em.
First, she's a big advocate for diversion programs. Instead of automatically sending nonviolent offenders through the traditional jail system, she wants to see more of them directed towards programs that focus on rehabilitation and meeting individual needs.
Diversion programs. Yeah. I've heard of those things like drug courts, mental health courts.
Right. Exactly. Those are prime examples. It's about offering alternatives to incarceration, providing support and resources to help people get back on track without the stigma and disruption of jail time.
So it's about breaking the cycle of recidivism.
Precisely. It's about recognizing that sometimes people just need a little help, a little support to get back on their feet, and that jail isn't always the answer.
Okay, that's one piece of the puzzle. What's the second part of her plan?
Mental health services, but with a twist.
A twist. Okay, I'm listening.
She doesn't just want mental health services integrated into the jail. She wants to see dedicated mental health facilities completely separate from the jail environment.
So instead of treating mental health as an afterthought within the jail system,
Mhm.
she wants to create a system of care that's truly, yeah, I can see the logic there.
Yeah.
All right, so that's two prongs down. What's the third element of her strategy?
Bail reform.
Bail reform. That's a hot topic.
It is, and for good reason. The current system often keeps people in jail simply because they can't afford to pay their bail, and that can have devastating consequences.
Yeah, they lose their jobs, their housing, even their kids sometimes, just because they can't come up with the money to get out of jail while they're awaiting trial.
Exactly, and that's what Bana wants to change. She argues that by reforming the bail system, we can keep more people out of jail pre-trial, which in turn reduces the need for such a massive and costly new jail.
So by addressing these underlying issues that drive incarceration, she's hoping to shrink the jail population and maybe even make that huge new jail unnecessary.
That's the idea. It's a bold vision, that's for sure, and it's generating a lot of debate.
I bet it is. I mean, some people are probably thinking, wait a minute, if we let all these people out of jail, won't that make our community less safe?
That's a valid concern, and one that Bana addresses head-on. She emphasizes a data-driven approach that prioritizes public safety.
So what does that look like?
Well, for starters, she's pointed out that the current jail is already overcrowded and understaffed, which actually makes our community less safe because it forces the early release of inmates without proper support or supervision.
So it's not about being soft on crime, it's about being smart and strategic in how we approach these complex issues.
Exactly. And by investing in programs that address the root causes of crime, she believes we can create a safer, more just community for everyone. It's about looking beyond the immediate crisis and thinking about the long-term implications of our choices.
Okay, I'm starting to see how all these pieces fit together.
Mm.
So we've got diversion programs, mental health services, and bail reform all working together to reduce the jail population and address the underlying issues that contribute to crime.
That's the gist of it. And it's a pretty significant departure from the traditional tough on crime approach that we've seen in the past.
It's definitely a different way of thinking about criminal justice,
Yeah.
and I'm sure it's raising a lot of eyebrows.
Oh, it is, but that's what makes this election so interesting. It's a real clash of ideologies and a chance for voters to decide what kind of future they want for Oklahoma County.
And speaking of the future, let's talk about Bana's other big focus, fiscal responsibility.
Right, because it's not just about how we approach criminal justice, it's also about how we manage our county's finances and make sure we're using taxpayer dollars wisely.
Exactly. So let's dig into that side of things.
Sounds good. So when we talk about fiscal responsibility with Sara Bana, it goes beyond just cutting waste. It's about a fundamental shift in how we prioritize spending.
Okay, so give us the rundown. What does that look like in practice? What are some specific examples of how she plans to use taxpayer dollars differently?
Well, for one, she's called out the county's over-reliance on expensive private contractors, for services that could potentially be done in-house for a lot less money.
Right? I've heard about that kind of thing happening. It's like they just throw money at these contractors without even considering whether there are more efficient options.
Exactly. And Bana's approach is all about scrutinizing those contracts, streamlining processes, and making sure we're getting the most bang for our buck.
So it's about being a savvy shopper, basically making sure we're getting the best value for our tax dollars.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just about saving money, it's about redirecting those savings towards things that actually benefit the community.
Okay, now you've got my attention. Where does all that money go? In Bana's vision for the county.
Imagine investing in things like affordable housing infrastructure, improvements, community programs, things that directly impact people's lives.
So instead of pouring millions into a bigger jail, she wants to use those funds to make Oklahoma County a better place to live.
Precisely. She's talked about things like expanding access to public transportation, revitalizing neglected neighborhoods, and even creating community gardens to promote healthy living and food security.
Yeah. I remember reading something about her proposing to build tiny homes as a way to address homelessness that seemed like a pretty outside-the-box idea.
It is, and it's gaining traction in other cities, too. It's about providing a safe, affordable, and dignified housing option for people who are struggling.
So it's not just about giving someone a roof over their head. It's about helping them get back on their feet and become contributing members of society.
That's the idea, and it ties into her broader vision of tackling those root causes of crime and poverty by addressing things like housing insecurity and lack of opportunity. She believes we can reduce the need for a massive jail in the first place.
So it's a preventative approach,
Yeah.
right? Investing in people and communities up front so that they don't end up in the criminal justice system down the road.
Exactly. It's about breaking those cycles of poverty and crime and creating a more just and equitable society for everyone.
Okay, so we've got criminal justice reform, mental health, fiscal responsibility, and community uplift.
Yeah.
Is there anything else on Sara Bana's agenda?
Oh, yeah, there's more. She's also a big proponent of government transparency and accountability.
Transparency and accountability, two words that I think every taxpayer wants to hear.
For sure. She wants to make sure that you, the voter, have clear insight into how your money is being spent and that elected officials are held accountable for their decisions.
So open books, basically, no more shady backroom deals.
Right. It's about restoring trust in government and making sure that the people's voices are heard.
Okay, so how does she plan to achieve that? What are some specific things she's proposing?
She's talked about things like implementing more robust open records policies, making county meetings more accessible to the public, and establishing clear channels for citizen input and feedback.
So it's about making it easier for people to participate in the process and hold their elected officials accountable.
Exactly. It's about making government work for the people, not the other way around.
Well, that all sounds great in theory. But let's be real for a moment. Even if Bana wins this election, putting all these plans into action won't be easy. She'll face pushback from people who benefit from the status quo, She'll have to navigate all sorts of political obstacles, and funding will always be a challenge.
You're absolutely right. It's going to be an uphill battle. But one of the things that makes Bana stand out is her collaborative approach.
So she's not planning to go it alone.
Not at all. She recognizes that she needs to build strong partnerships with community organizations, advocate for funding at the state and federal level, and most importantly, listen to the concerns and ideas of the people she represents.
So it's about bringing people together, finding common ground, and working towards shared goals.
Exactly. And based on her track record of community activism and her ability to unite diverse groups, she seems to have a knack for building consensus and getting things done.
Okay, so she's got the experience, the vision, and the collaborative approach. But what are some potential roadblocks she might encounter along the way? What are some of the biggest challenges she'll face if she's elected?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges will be dealing with those who are resistant to change. She's disrupting a system that's been in place for a long time, and there will be people who are invested in maintaining the status quo.
Right, the old guard who likes things the way they are.
Exactly. And then there's the funding issue. She's opposed to raising taxes, so she'll have to get creative and find other ways to pay for all these initiatives.
Yeah, that's a tough one, especially with the economy being so unpredictable these days.
It is, but Bana believes that by eliminating wasteful spending, streamlining county operations, and prioritizing investments, we can free up resources without burdening taxpayers.
So it's about finding efficiencies, making tough choices, and being a good steward of taxpayer dollars.
Exactly. It's about making every dollar count and using it to create a better future for Oklahoma County.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about Sara Bana, her vision, her plans, and the challenges she'll face. But this election isn't just about her right. There are other candidates in the race with their own ideas and perspectives.
Absolutely there are, and it's important for voters to consider all the options and make an informed decision based on their own values and priorities.
Right. It's about doing your homework and figuring out which candidate best represents your vision for Oklahoma County.
Exactly, because ultimately this election is about choosing a direction for our community. It's about deciding what kind of future we want to build.
And that's a pretty big deal.
It is, and it's why it's so important for people to get engaged, to learn about the candidates and the issues, and to make their voices heard.
So why should our listeners care about this election? Why should they be paying attention to Sara Bana and what she's trying to do?
Because this election has real-world consequences for their lives. The decisions made by the next county commissioner will impact their taxes, their safety, their access to essential services, and the overall quality of life in their community.
It's not just some abstract political game. It's about things that affect people's everyday lives.
Exactly. And what's exciting about Sara Bana's candidacy is that she offers a real alternative to the status quo. She's not afraid to challenge conventional thinking, to think outside the box, and to fight for what she believes in.
And for voters who are tired of the same olds, who are looking for a leader who's willing to shake things up and fight for their interests, Sara Bana represents a chance for real change.
Absolutely. She's a breath of fresh air in a political landscape that often feels stale and disconnected from the needs of everyday people.
Okay, so we've talked about Bana's vision, her plans, the challenges she'll face, and the importance of this election for voters. But I think there's another layer to this conversation that we haven't touched on yet.
And what's that? It's about the bigger picture. What happens in Oklahoma County could have implications that go way beyond its borders.
That's an interesting thought. What do you mean?
Well, think about it. If Bana wins and her approach to things like criminal justice reform and fiscal responsibility actually works, it could become a model for other counties and cities that are facing similar challenges.
So Oklahoma County could become like a national example of how to do things differently.
Exactly. And that could spark a whole wave of change across the country.
Wow. That's a pretty powerful idea. So this election isn't just about Oklahoma County. It's about potentially changing the way we think about these issues on a national scale.
That's what's so exciting about it. It's about more than just one county or one election. It's about a potential paradigm shift in how we approach these complex issues as a society.
Okay, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. We still have to deal with the immediate challenges facing Oklahoma County right now.
Of course, and one of the biggest ones is figuring out what to do about the jail. Even if Bana's vision of reducing the jail population is successful, we still have this massive, outdated, overcrowded facility that needs to be addressed.
Right. It's not like we can just snap our fingers and make it disappear.
Exactly. And that's going to require a leader who can think strategically, weigh the costs and benefits of different options, and make tough decisions that are in the best interest of both taxpayers and the incarcerated population.
So it's a balancing act, finding a solution that's both fiscally responsible and humane.
Exactly. And beyond the jail, there's the issue of homelessness, which is a growing problem in Oklahoma County.
Yeah, we talked about Bana's tiny homes proposal, but that's just one piece of the puzzle.
Right. It's going to take a much more comprehensive approach that includes things like mental health services, addiction treatment, job training, and affordable housing options.
So it's not just about providing shelter, it's about addressing the underlying causes of homelessness and giving people the support they need to get back on their feet.
Exactly. And that brings us to another major challenge facing the county: mental health and substance abuse.
Those are huge issues everywhere, it seems like.
They are, and Oklahoma County is no exception. The next commissioner will need to prioritize funding for these services and work to create a system of care that is accessible, effective, and compassionate.
So we're talking about a whole web of interconnected issues here. Criminal justice, homelessness, mental health, substance abuse. It's a lot for one person to handle.
It is the next county commissioner will have their work cut out for them.
So what should voters be looking for in a candidate? What qualities and characteristics are essential for success in this role?
Well, I think first and foremost, they need to have integrity and a strong commitment to public service. This isn't just a job, it's a calling.
Right. It's about serving the people, putting their needs first.
Exactly. And they also need a proven track record of leadership and accomplishment, someone who has demonstrated the ability to get things done, to bring people together, and to make tough decisions.
So it's not just about talking the talk, it's about walking the walk.
Exactly. And finally, I think it's important to consider a candidate's vision for the future of Oklahoma County. Do their ideas align with your own? Do they inspire you? Do they offer a clear path forward for addressing the challenges we've discussed?
So it's about finding someone who can not only manage the day-to-day, but also lead us towards a better tomorrow.
Exactly. This election is an opportunity to shape the direction of Oklahoma County for years to come.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the Oklahoma County Commissioner race, what are some key takeaways for our listeners? What should they keep in mind as they head to the polls?
I think the most important takeaway is this: your vote matters.
It always does.
But in this election especially, it's about more than just choosing a name on a ballot. It's about choosing a future for Oklahoma County.
It's about deciding what kind of community you want to live in and what kind of a legacy you want to leave behind.
Exactly. So do your research, get informed about the candidates and the issues, and most importantly, get out there and vote.
Your voice deserves to be heard. Well said. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the Oklahoma County Commissioner race. Thanks for joining us, and remember to stay engaged, stay informed, and keep